Well, my studio is an absolute disaster today. What are we talking about? The Demco AD 20.5 slicer. Is it slicier than the original one? Well, let's just get to it. So the original one had 125 thousandths blade stock thickness. The new one has 125 thousandths blade stock thickness. So the blade stock thickness is the same. Now there's a good part about that and a bad part. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, where does the sliciness come in at? How are they calling it slicer? So the thickness behind the edge on the slicer is 20 to 21 thousandths, about 20 thousandths. On the original one, it's about 25, 26 thousand, 24 to 26 thousand. Shout out to Brian over at Transparent Knives. He gets tons of AD 20.5s in because he does reblades on them. So I reached out to him to ask him the thickness behind the edge they come with on the original ones. I remembered, you know, the thickness behind the edge after I sharpened mine a bunch of times, but I couldn't remember exactly where it started at. So he measured a few and let me know. So another thing is the way they did the geometry on the original one, when you sharpen it, especially if you sharpen it multiple times, it gets ridiculously thick. If I remember correctly, the one that I had that I sharpened about 4 or 5 times wound up being like 34, 35 thousandths behind the edge after just a few sharpenings, which is crazy. That is thick, super, super thick, especially for the type of knife it is, which we're gonna talk more about that too. As you move up the blade, it stays a little bit thinner. Now granted, this isn't a hollow grind, it's still a flat grind on the slicer, but it is a bit slicier in the grind and doesn't thicken up as much. So that's gonna make it sharpen faster, be easier to sharpen. The geometry is gonna stay slicier as you sharpen it and cut with it and use it, so that's a beautiful thing. And it's gonna be easier to hone and strop because, you know, it's thinner. So as far as the original one, right? Is it even worth it, right? Is it even worth buying the original one? So I'm gonna say no if you're looking for a slicing knife. If you're looking for a cutting performance knife, if you're looking for a knife that cuts well, good ergonomics, you know, and feels good to slice with, no. The geometry is just entirely way too thick for something like that. Now, if you're looking for something that's impact resistant, super strong, super tough, and can handle some abuse, then yeah, it's worth it. But the thing is that when you're talking about that thick of geometry, especially after sharpening it a few times, the ergonomics have to be very, very, very comfortable. The AD 20.5 is comfortable, but I just don't think it's set up for that thick of geometry, you know, unless, like I said, unless if you're doing like tougher, harder use stuff on it. Now, they had to do it that thick in order to make the lock as strong as it is, because you can't say the knife, like let's say if you say this knife can hold 600 pounds, right? Well, if the blade snapped at 300 pounds, the knife holds 300 pounds and not 600, right? So it doesn't matter how strong the lock is if the blade snaps. So in order for the blade to withstand as much pressure as the lock, they had to make it thicker. So as far as the slicer goes, they didn't thin it out like crazy, so it's still gonna hold plenty of toughness. This is still a tough knife. I want to be clear. This is not, it's not like this is like just a mega slicer now. They thinned out the geometry a little bit, but it's still nice and robust enough to where you can still be tough on it. So I think that this is a way better option than the original. And I personally like the blade shape a lot better. Nice, beautiful spear point blade. I love how this dips down, you know, you got the jimping. Now, as far as the original one goes, if you have the original, you could always go get a regrind. I want to be clear. You can always go get a regrind and make it super slicey. You can go and get original goat scales. And that leads me to the blade stock thickness again. The good thing on why they didn't change the blade stock thickness is I'm pretty sure you can still use original goat scales. I'm pretty sure because the blade stock thickness is the same. I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So just make sure, you know, you check out everything, because I'm not 100% sure, but you know, theoretically it should. So for original goat scales, they have aluminum, they have a milled aluminum, milled titanium ones, all different kinds. They're 100% USA made, and they're really good quality. Some of the best scales I've ever tried, they're the best scales I've ever had are original goat scales. I think they do a phenomenal job. They have an awesome team, just everything about them. And I have a 15% discount code to save you money if, you know, you want to get a set. Discount code is Neves, or just hit the link down in the description. So Anyways, the knife. You know what, before the Ultem scales, I do want to talk about one thing. So I actually just found this out. If you want to help the channel, if you want to support the channel, I actually just found this out. The #1 way you can support the channel is actually by watching another video. If you watch a video and then after you're finished with the video, you click on another video, it tells YouTube's algorithm that you like the content. Then they share it with other people. The likes are really good. The comments are really good. I always thought the likes was the #1 metric, but it's actually whether or not you watch another video. So if you want to support the channel, I'd greatly appreciate it after watching a video if you click on another video and watch another one. Obviously, I'm going to appreciate that, right? But it'll help me boost me up in the algorithm. Anyways, the Ultem scales. Now, I'll be honest. When I first seen them, I thought they were ugly. I did not like them. I thought they were ugly. I thought I'll never get those. I could care less about those. But then I started seeing knives that had all black hardware, black clips, black blades with the Ultem scales, you know, with the cool locking mechanisms on the inside. And I was like, okay, they're kind of cool. Granted, they're just a glorified plastic. They're cool because you can see through them. So if you have a cool mechanism in the knife, you know, yeah, it's cool to see. But you know, the color combination also is kind of cool, but it's a glorified plastic. You know, yes, it's impact resistant and shock proof and all that stuff. So it's going to be a good handle material. It's going to be nice and strong, but you know, it is what it is. You don't need it. It's not something you absolutely need, but you know, it's kind of cool. Now, the downside is the price. The price is a bit up there. Now, granted, most of the Demko 80/20s and 20.5s are a bit expensive. So for the Ultem scales one, I think it was like $300 or something like that. So with the Ultem scales, they do have a gray version as well, with the gray plastic scales or FRN, whatever it is, for like $265. But if you want the Ultem scales, it's between $290 and $300, depending if you get the coated or non-coated. So yes, you know, for it's made in Taiwan, so I consider that. But even though it's made in Taiwan and it's 20 CV steel and all that good stuff, I still would feel better at it like $250. Granted, sometimes if you want to get something, you just got to pay for it, and that's just the way it is. And you know, I understand. You know, they're trying to make money, and they know it's a little bit more appealing having this thinner grind and all this stuff. But that being said, why not just throw a hollow grind on it if you already know that the slicer is going to appeal to a bigger audience? You know, whatever. Either way, though, you know, I paid for it, and I'm actually pretty happy with it. I'm happy for it. I do feel like I paid a little bit overpriced, but, you know, sometimes that's just the name of the game. Anyways, like I said, I do like it. I do think it's pretty cool. Now, as far as other options, there are a ton of options with this knife. So you have tons of options. They have right now titanium ones with 20 CV with the regular blade for like $330. So for only $30 more than this, still with 20 CV. So I'll have everything linked down in the description for you guys to check out everything I'm saying. But all in all, with it, you know, yes, it's slicier. It's going to feel a little bit better in the hand when slicing. Now, like I said, original goat scales would make it feel even better because original goat scales kind of thickens it up a little bit. It does make it feel quite a bit better. But yeah, the locking system, you know, on the 80/20s, they're so fidgety, and that is something that I do appreciate. You know, I do love the locking system and what it does and how it works and how strong it is and all that stuff. You know, I just never really appreciated the thick geometry of the original one. So that was the downside to me. So, you know, that was the only downside to me. So seeing one come in a little bit slicier, you know, it was right up my alley, even though technically I already have a super slicey one because I got one from Brian from Transparent Knives with a super deep hollow ground spear point blade, like 10 thousandths behind the edge, super deep hollow with MagnaCut at 64.5 HRC. So check out Transparent Knives if you want to check out what he's doing. He's been having knives on his Instagram listed for sale quite a bit lately. So check them out. They're not all 80/20.5s. A lot of them are like 940s and bug outs and stuff like that. But check him out as well. Maybe I'll link his Instagram down in the description for you to go check out. But yeah, there you guys go. Work hard, stay tough. Until next time, peace.